right now, drop a hello in the chat box and please let us know where are you watching from. I always love seeing how far this community have reached. This is the season 1 of 5. This March is dedicated to women's in the SEO community. So SEO Talk, thanks to Malhar and Parth, they have taken an initiative where they have ensured that we women are getting a platform for this particular month, and we all are coming out and talking and showing our intelligence for the community. Today, we are going to the biggest, most debated, most misunderstood topic in our industry right now: AI and the future of SEO. Quick, quick bit of context for anyone new to SEO Talk. This is a volunteering run community that has been bringing the SEO world together since 2012. Every March, we hand the mic entirely to the women's in SEO. 5 seasons, 15 brilliant voices, real conversations, no slides, no sponsor pitches, just honest practitioner level discussions, and I'm really proud to be part of it. Now let's get back to the action. Let me start this session by introducing our today's panelist. I'm starting with Nikki. Nikki is a marketing strategist with over 10 plus years of experience leading digital and event marketing projects for global brands like SEMrush, iQuantai, and many more. Over the years, she led hundreds of projects from full scale campaign to content to industry events and training and a lot more. Nikki, I warmly welcome you and I would love for you to take a couple of minutes to introduce yourself to the audience.
So hi, I'm Nikki. Lovely to meet you all. I'm very much looking forward to this discussion. I am based in Switzerland, but I'm originally from the UK/US and lived a long time in Spain as well. So I'm a bit of a mixture. If anyone's wondering where my accent is from, that's why. It always comes up. I'm currently working freelance for the clients like Isha mentioned. And yeah, just this is definitely a hot topic for everyone in the SEO industry, and constantly getting questions from left and right of people asking for help, how they can optimize for AI overviews and AI search. So looking forward.
Thank you, Nikki. Brilliant to have you here. And now let me bring in Laura. Laura is an independent SEO and search consultant with 7 plus years of experience shaping search strategies that put humans first. She is the founder of Searchpedia, which I'm thinking it's coming from Wikipedia. So it's the Searchpedia, known for her quickie big idea thinking and her sharp user focused SEO. And she's a proud SEO. Laura, over to you.
Yeah. Thanks for the intro, Isha. Yes, big thumbs up to Women in Tech SEO. I know we were speaking about the great things that everyone in this community is doing. I think, if I'm not wrong, they're the ones who promoted this whole idea, and this is how we all three got here today. So thank you, guys. Now, I know, same as Nikki, I'm from all over the place, really. I'm currently located in the UK. I've been here for probably 10 plus years now, something like that. But I hail from Romania. I'm originally from Romania. I also lived and worked in other countries such as China, funnily enough, in Prague. I was there for a while, Barcelona, Paris. So I'm quite traveled in that sense. So same as Nikki, my accent is a bit of a mix of everything. So I hope, I'm quite understood today. So please let me know if there's anything that you can't pick up, and just tell me, hey, can you repeat that? No shame in that. I completely understand it. Now, I don't know what else to say about me. I think you've done a nice intro. Just at the moment, I am freelancing as well. My main client is the biggest energy provider in the UK, which is quite a bit of a challenge. And as you can see working for such a big brand, these sort of questions, anything AI related, they are so out there that I think at this point we must repeat our answers all the time. So it'll be quite a fun, challenging conversation, I think, between us today. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Love that. Thank you, Laura. And finally, let me bring in Amanda. Amanda is the founder and director of Digital, award-winning agency based in UK, recently named Best Small Integrated Agency in Europe and the UK. Amanda, wonderful to have you. Please introduce yourself. I know you have done a lot, so please.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for having me here today. I'm really excited to be chatting over these topics. I think it's something that's just so super relevant at the minute. A little bit about me. So actually similar to you guys, I've also lived in a lot of different countries. So I guess that's something we all have in common. I grew up in Australia, so I grew up on the other side of the world, and then I lived in Singapore for a while. And I'm now back in the UK, where I look after Cedarwood. We're actually 10 years old next week. So I've had the agency for 10 years. That's really exciting. I'm going to have a big party, get a nice cake, all those kind of things. But my sort of day-to-day is I predominantly look after our SEO and digital PR function for clients across the UK, Europe, and the US, with a real focus on, your money, your life websites. That's kind of our sort of bread and butter. We're obviously seeing a huge impact from AI and just from a changing landscape in general. So it's something that I feel like we're talking about on a daily basis now. So yeah, really looking forward to getting stuck into some conversations.
Amazing. Thank you, Amanda. And what a panel we have. We will be going for about an hour today. I'll guide the conversation with questions, and in the final 10 or 15 minutes, we will open it for your questions in the live chat. So drop anything. This is for all the audience who are joining us live. Any questions which you have, please drop in anytime. All right, now let's get into it. So the first question. Now the first theme. So what we have done is we have basically divided these questions into specific themes. We'll start with the first theme. We're setting up the scene here, and so in one sentence, and this is for all of you, how describe the single biggest way AI has changed your day-to-day SEO work in the last 12 months? So let's start simple. One sentence, no essays, just honest, instinct answer. Uh, so let's start with Nikki. Nikki, in the last 12 months, what is that one thing which has changed?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that everyone is now obsessed with efficiency, which is fun, because I'm down for that conversation. So a lot of people are saying, how can we automate this and that, and everyone's trying to get to grips with how it works. And I'm very happy to have that conversation, because I wish we would have automated a lot of this stuff earlier. We didn't need AI to automate as much as we're doing now.
So true. Laura, over to you.
I think it improves my time efficiency quite a bit, and because everyone else is using it now, right? So from content writers when they're creating layouts for their blog posts, for example, to entire devs team when they use Claude AI to simplify their code and all that. I think, it's just made the conversation between teams a bit easier, I suppose, because it's easier for everyone to do their own quick research on certain topics. So I think that's where, in a bigger organization, for example, it helps quite a lot. Pretty much freelance clients, because obviously everyone can access now anything really, and again, they do their own research. So I think that's probably the quickest answer I can give you.
That's a nice one. Amanda, now, what about you?
I think, to be honest, along the same lines. So what I would say in one sentence is, what used to take hours of research can now be done in minutes. I think the thing that we utilize AI for the most is that research phase. Yes, you can use it for templating. Yes, we can use it for ideation and to give inspiration, but fundamentally, we do a lot of digital PR, and that means we're researching a lot of what's happening in the news to jump on trending topics, to understand what's happening. I've built a newsjacking GPT that essentially scans all of the news websites, is trained on all of our clients, knows the kind of information that they want, and pulls for me all the stories in the last 7 days that have been in the news that relate to our clients, so that we can kind of jump on them from a PR perspective. And that, previously would have taken me hours to manually crawl through everything. And now I literally push the button in the morning, and within about 10 minutes, I have a spreadsheet of everything I need. So yeah, it's a dream, really, to be honest, in some ways, I guess.
Nice. I think, if I have to summarize from all of three, there are three takeaways for me from this conversation. One thing which we all are agreeing to it, that AI has helped a lot in efficiency, which has came up across. Second is, it has helped us a lot in our overall team management, which is the second thing which has came up. And from Amanda's, your point of view, I feel it has time, and the researches which used to take a lot of time, now it has been and information also, which was previously not that available and accessible to all, is now easily there. So wonderful. Thank you so much for that first one, to set up the right space. Perfect. So now let's move on to the second one. So when you look at AI in search specifically today, do you see it as an evolution of SEO we will adapt to, or you see that it is a disruption that fundamentally changes the rules of the game? So here's one, I think. Yeah. Sorry, yeah, Nikki, please go ahead.
So for me, I see it more as an evolution. I think there's a bit this debate. Some people say it's transforming everything. Other people who've maybe especially been in SEO for a while see it as just another evolution of SEO in terms of AI search, specifically within the AI space. Because at the end of the day, it's about brand visibility, whether that's in the SERPs, in the AI overviews, or LLMs. AI in terms of like agents and things like this, workflows, I think that has the most potential to change the game. And I think that's a little bit what Amanda was talking about before with your setup for the digital PR, how you have it, coming already to you. So I think that definitely with people buying things directly through agents, or us as SEOs setting up these workflows, that I think will definitely change what we're currently doing in our day-to-day, because maybe we'll be more overseeing workflows and things like this, doing integrations, rather than maybe doing the work we do today, which is like keyword research and these types of tasks, because we're not necessarily needed for those tasks anymore.
I think just to add to that point as well, that Nikki was saying, like where we are at the minute is an evolution. But I think if we continue to go down that path at the rate that we currently are, because AI is evolving so quickly, it almost can turn into a disruption. So right now it's an evolution of SEO. A lot of what we're doing for SEO can be adapted to AI, can be adapted to GEO to work really well. But like fundamentally, if a lot of, I guess in our space, if a lot of agencies do start utilizing AI to speed up processes, then it does become a disruption, because it fundamentally changes the way that we work. It changes our models, our business models as agencies, and the services that we're providing to clients. And it probably also changes the way that we work with clients' in-house teams. And I think that's a broader conversation, because a lot of what we find from clients, especially when they're asking us about AI and they're saying, right, how much time are we saving and where is that time then going? So I think as it continues to evolve and disrupt, there's also an element of having that conversation as to how that agency in-house model and the freelancer model as well, how that evolves with it, because I think that's probably going to be the most disruptive part of the whole cycle.
Totally. Can I add on to that with the freelance world?
Yes.
What I've seen a lot is that people are asking already the LLMs the initial basic questions that they used to. So I don't have to educate people anymore on what does SEO stand for, or what is keyword research. They will fact check immediately proposals I make in LLMs, and then come to me with more like mid-level kind of questions. So I definitely see that we need to be ready for that, and anticipate that they will directly do that with any work we're doing. They're now fact checking, essentially.
So
I think at pitch as well, when we're sending pitches off to companies, I think they're sometimes putting it through ChatGPT to pull out the key statistics that they want. Because I appreciate, like, sometimes it is a bit like death by PowerPoint, right? When you get a lot of pitches from agencies and they're, you know, X amount of kind of standard pages long. And I think as well that's playing an important part of the role. And interestingly, a couple of weeks ago, we were approached by a company and I asked them how they found us. And they said, oh, we've sent an AI agent around the web to look at different agencies' websites and shortlist us. And then we went through and manually checked. And I was like, wow, that's a game changer from a market, the way that we market ourselves in this space, because that actually made complete sense for them to do that, you know, to build an agent, to get it to crawl the web, to save the hours of like going through agency websites, reading through the case studies, reading through this. They could just send it. Have they got relevant case studies? Have they done this? Have they done that? Give me a short list, quick manual check. Right, we've got the 3 or 5 agencies we want to speak to. And that made me think actually how we're approaching our own SEO and our own GEO to actually be found to provide that service in the first place.
So true. Laura, what about yours?
Yeah, I think when we talk about disruptions, because we all know the positives by now, don't we? We know it helps us in our day-to-day work and the many ways we can do good with it, pretty much. And not just for us, obviously, for entire teams. But I think what in the SEO space has sort of happened as of late when it comes to using AI in your day-to-day, I think we started to get a bit, not lazy necessarily, but as you said, like skip a couple of like very basic steps that we know we can do anyway. So especially if you're an entry level or a mid level, right, where you're still sort of acquiring quite a lot of knowledge and skill to build up your SEO. I think a lot of people in this space, they start to rely a bit too much on AI, kind of like get those first initial steps done. And that's not necessarily a good thing. There's someone in one of our freelance group chats who I think they should coin that term because it sounds so funny. They said they received a Claudit, an SEO Claudit. And I was like, do you know what? I've seen some of those. And right, the structure is out there, right? They're not bad structures, but obviously you can't necessarily rely on the data and the steps that the AI model is going to rely back to you. You still need to engage your brain. Don't abdicate your brain. Just keep it there and sort of, do what you know best. But yeah, I think that's sort of the disruptive model for me, at least in this space, like seeing, peers and obviously myself included being guilty of like sometimes using it in the wrong way kind of thing until you get to the point where you can see how it can genuinely help you. So trial and error kind of thing. So it can be quite disruptive in that sense and time consuming, especially in the beginning. But once you get there, as Nikki said, automation is God. Like you get to a point where yes, you can rely on the positives, but it can be quite a difficult, I suppose, process for some. So yeah, that was my 2 pence.
Well, that's really nice and interesting, and I agree with one thing which Nikki is saying. Even that's something which I'm seeing here in specifically in India and in Indian industry as well. That because of AI now, we don't have to explain what is SEO to people. At least now people are aware of SEO because that's been par. But yes, I would say that AI has done is actually it has raised the bar for what quality and authority actually means. So ideally the rules are the same, the standard is higher, and it is not actually disruption. I would say this is evolution with consequences. So yes, it is evolution and there's a disruption, but that's my point of view here. So having said that, now let's get into data, which is the most important thing for any marketer. uh, Google's AI overviews are no longer an experiment. they are mainstream, and the questions even every founder and marketing lead I speak to is asking right now is, what is this actually doing to traffic? Because we all are seeing that we all are seeing that right now, because of the AI overview, the questions, the answers, everyone is questioning that what is the impact to the traffic and the measurements at this. So what is your observation on that?
Can start if you like. Yeah. So it's a very pertinent question, and especially with new data coming out every day, really. Whether it's from Google or independent SEO agencies or entire marketing agencies that are sort of releasing their own sort of data on the matter. And we've all predicted with SGE that informational queries are going to go down. So we've sort of expected some sort of traffic changes. But then I think it also sort of like a bit more about where the research now actually happens, because now we're in conversations with AI platforms. It's not longer like keyword result. So you've got an entire journey to kind of like set up for yourself to like say prepare yourself and your company or your brand or your client for whatever traffic changes might happen. And I think what's also important is kind of like explaining that the old KPIs. I think I read a very nice article about this recently. I will share the resource in the chat. But yeah, this entire KPI model that worked before is slightly changing in this day and age. So where you had your ranking, your click, and your obsession back in the day, which is still pertinent, still the model. It's gotten to a point where what you're getting from AI overviews, for example, right? You're beginning to measure in different KPIs. So now you've got citations, you've got brand mentions, you've got brand exposure, and so on, right? Mm-hmm. So what you need to follow now is sort of the journey from when you've been mentioned or cited, so whether you've got a link or not, right? Just your regular brand name or your link with actual citation, to your brand exposure, and then getting to your latest search. So see people who actually come from question-based model queries and so on. And there's ways to do it to kind of like, track this obviously in your Google Analytics with creating a different channel for LLM traffic. You can do this by following your log files analysis with your devs. You don't need to do it yourself if you're not comfortable with it. There's way to kind of like prepare for it. But it's really important to explain to your stakeholders that this is completely different to what we used to. It's extremely volatile, and whatever traffic changes you might experience, they might not be from it. Just follow your own. It could be related to a completely different channel that you're not even like taking into account at the moment. So there's so many steps to get there, and I think it's so important to kind of like just manage expectation and reassure your stakeholders that, hey, this might not be the case. Let's dig deeper. Let's, explain the new model kind of thing before you actually make assumptions. Yeah. Sorry, I'm gonna stop because
that's but that's so true that yes, now the expectation has to be changed. Amanda, over to you. What's your take for this question?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, look, generally traffic is down for most of our SEO clients off the back of AI overviews. It's a bit of a combination because I think the AI overviews have contributed in some way. One thing that we've really noticed, because we work a lot in regulated sectors, is that we're hurting more from the loss of featured snippets than we are from the AI overlays specifically. So obviously when the overviews came in, they replaced a lot of the featured snippets that we previously had, and we held a lot of those in position 1. So one thing that I'm seeing a lot with clients that are coming to us and they're asking for an audit, and they're basically saying, we've lost all of our traffic because of AI overlays. And actually, when you do the analysis, the reality of why they've lost a lot of that traffic is simply because they had a featured snippet in position 1, which has just gone into the ether kind of thing. It doesn't exist anymore. So that's definitely a challenge. I think, to the point that you just made in terms of how do we reframe that for the people that we're speaking to, for the clients, how do we explain that to them? That has been a really big challenge. And I think that's a very difficult point because, yes, we all know citations are important. Yes, we know brand visibility is big. We know that. But then when you're talking to a CFO or when you're talking to a board who is very numbers driven and wants to know why they've dropped sales, why they've dropped leads, why they've dropped conversions, that is a really, I'm finding that to be a really difficult conversation to have, because I feel like we're almost in two different spaces. They're saying, well, we used to get, 400 leads and now we're getting 350 leads. This isn't worth our investment. And on the flip side of that, we're trying to say we need to measure it differently, but the measurements that we're giving them aren't as, let's say, quantifiable as the ones that they're previously used to. Leads is a very quantifiable metric. It's like, right, someone's clicked on the website, they've seen our brand, they've converted, tick. Whereas now we're saying, we know people have still seen it, they've still seen it from brand awareness. Actually, a lot of those informational visitors may not have gone on to convert anyway, so we're still focusing on those transactional keywords. And I think it's a really difficult conversation. And a lot of agency owners that I've spoken to in the last sort of month or two have said this is becoming a very big challenge. And as a result of that, I think we're finding a lot more clients are wanting more hand-holding to really understand, what is this AI change? How much of an impact is it going to have on our business? And how do we report to our C-suite or to our senior leadership team on what we now need to be focusing on? And a lot of what we've seen as well from senior leadership teams is, right, what does AI mean? How do we now look at it in a new world? What impact does it have on SEO? What impact does it have on PPC? Because we've got, ads are going to be coming into the AI overlays, and that's going to be a whole new ball game again for organic traffic, because that's going to take more of that direct transactional traffic away from what we have organically. And I just think there's a really big conversation to be had there, and generally we're having to have those conversations where we're saying, look, we just need to look at this a different way, but it's not resonating with everyone. To be honest, some people are simply saying, I don't feel this is worth the investment anymore because we're not getting the sales, because we're not getting the leads, and that's a difficult conversation.
So that is so true, and I think that's you actually have banged on the uncomfortable question which we wanted to point it out, and the answer ideally we all are looking for, because that's what people are, even when they're coming to agencies, that's what they're expecting, that fine, we are, because they're investing an amount and they're also looking for a return on investment, and we can't just, and when we just talk about journey, it is becoming very difficult to explain the same thing to the client, that it is to have all these touch points measured. So before I move further, Nikki, what about you?
I
What is
love this
your take on it?
conversation on the KPIs, because this, I think, is such an interesting one, because possibly, in my view, traffic is turning into a proxy metric where it's no longer as relevant. I mean, before, obviously, it was very correlated to number of leads, conversions, all of this. I think we're going to have to simplify things as SEOs. And even though we had other metrics in the past, like backlinks and stuff like this, well, we still have these, but now compared to citations and things like that, that's too abstract. That's too abstract for a CFO. They just don't see how does that translate to revenue. Like, we could easily pull a very nice looking graph on J4 or a Google Search Console and show them, oh, look, visibility is going up. And then they don't really need to know more than that. They're happy. They see the number going up on a graph. And now we have lots of little metrics, and they're not increasing a lot, because how much can you increase mentions and citations in month to month? It's hard, right? So I really think we're going to need some kind of integration, with these platforms like Ahrefs or SEMrush or something, where it shows us in one place on one graph this going up with all of the tools together, including SEO and the SERPs together, not just there's an AI toolkit and there's an SEO toolkit. We need it in one place, because that's what we miss nowadays to show it's worth the investment. Like you're saying, Amanda, totally can understand that a CFO doesn't see the investment. And I don't really have the solution for that, because I haven't found the perfect metric. At the end of the day, it's revenue, and it's always been very difficult to prove that this is making an impact. It's very easy on something like paid search, because you just turn off the ads and you have a baseline. You go, look, when we're not running ads, we have this. It takes a bit of bravery sometimes to do that, but I could definitely recommend people in performance marketing, try it. Turn off all ads for 2 weeks, and then you have kind of at least something that you can show to your client. Whereas organic search, you can't do that. It doesn't work like that. So it's very interesting.
I mean, yeah, like I mean, the moment you said that, we all have to simplify it. The most important thing for me is like how, because we all know that we all have to simplify it. But right now with the AI, things are becoming more complicated rather than simple. And what I am seeing right now, specifically in the matrix part, and like what I'm doing with my own personal clients, are that I'm educating them that stop comparing SEO like your paid performance metrics, start comparing SEO as more like a branding activity. Because when you say branding, it is a very different marketing ball game where you capture it. So every time, don't just uh, expect every time. You just should not measure SEO just by how much revenue I'm getting, how much leads I'm getting, because there are a lot of things which is way beyond that as well. Because every content piece which we are generating, which we are sharing, is way more than just leads. And but yes, it is difficult still, because when you're talking in the board, when you're talking with the finances, it's all about numbers. So yes, so I think this is one thing which we all are figuring it out, how to get the numbers right. um very So I think it's so very nice conversation we're happening. So let's move further. Here's one that I think is going to spill the room. AI agents are now browsing the web, making recommendations, and in some cases completing purchases without the user ever visiting a website. So I want to ask you people directly, is SEO still about getting the clicks, or has the game fundamentally changed? Amanda, I want you to start with this.
Yeah, so I think, to be fair, this probably ties in a little bit with what I was saying earlier about the client that came to us recently that had used an AI agent to research which agency essentially. So they were pulling together a range of agencies for a pitch. They had built an AI agent, they had sent it off to the web with a certain criteria that they wanted it to look at. That agent had obviously been to all the websites, pulled all that information together, shortlisted them. He then did say, that we then went and had obviously look on the website, and we did a bit of a sense check to check that it was aligned with what we were looking for. But I think that's a really good example of, they didn't actually have to take that last step of going onto our website and checking. They could simply have just used the AI agents to do all of that information and shortlisted us without ever going onto our website. That's a little bit scary, in my view, to think about it that way. But what I do think that probably then ties into is that concept of entity SEO and branding. And I think that's something that we've been talking about for a long time now. We've been talking about it with our clients, but I think in general it's become more of a discussion point in the last 6 months. And now, if you want to be found, you have to exist everywhere. It's not enough to just exist in the search results when someone searches for SEO agency. It's not enough to just put a paid search ad up there. You have to exist in the ecosystem. You have to exist with a lot of different touch points. You have to be trusted externally as well as write great things on your website. You need that external validation becomes very, very important, because when these AI agents are going out and they're looking, these are all the things they're looking at. They're not looking at, an optimized piece of content or what people have traditionally been doing for SEO. They're looking for a trusted brand. They're looking for something that they know is the right kind of, it fits that stipulated list, let's say, and it's something that they can trust. And so what I think basically off the back of that is that what we're now building is we're building a brand entity SEO, not just an on-page SEO or a website SEO. Our websites will still always be a marketing function, but fundamentally, if we want to be found in the ecosystem and we want to be returned in, even if we want to be returned in, top lists by AI agents and recommended by AI agents, we need to make sure that all those touch points they're using to recommend us are where we're found. And that is a big branding piece. And I think a lot of times, particularly interesting, I was having a conversation with a client yesterday about this. They do, I think, really great SEO. They have a strong digital PR, but they don't have any cohesive approach to branding strategy. So if people ask about the brand, or if you look online for the brand, aside from the digital PR that's been done, they're probably a little bit weak in terms of what's there, and especially when it comes to those external trust points. And I was saying to them, like your SEO on site is really good. Like if you fundamentally, if you search this particular product, you're ranking really well. You've got all your semantics, you've got good natural language processing, good user intent match, all of those things, good links. But if I then went to actually go and research about you and like go around the web like an AI agent does, I'm not sure I'd find that much external validation. And that's where it's holding it back. And I think that's where now brands are starting to consider, or should hopefully be looking to consider, okay, it's not enough to just have great content. It's not enough to just have great links. I've got to have that whole package. And it's got to be consistent across the board.
I'm really looking forward what the future will be, because the way things are changing and moving. And anyway, so Nikki, what about you? You said it has to be simple, but what do you think that clicks? Do you think that clicks is still the same, or people are moving beyond that and not more?
I think that actually some people are not as advanced as we imagine. We are all SEOs, we're all in this AI world, and more than half the world is like, what is AI? What is going on? Think about how many websites nowadays you go to, and they're not even mobile optimized. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, so I think that things will actually, for the web, possibly happen a bit slower than we anticipate. The big brands, the ones investing in SEO, they are going to be the ones found, and everyone else is going to be left behind. I think AI agents has the most potential to change the game in terms of AI visibility. The brands who are already believing in SEO will continue to do well, in my view.
Very nice. Laura.
So the whole clicks debate, obviously, like there's an entire conversation around zero click, and yeah. So to be fair, it's a very long conversation. To just go back on the whole branding, obviously, because that's sort of, I suppose that's sort of the main theme here. Actually, no. Let me get back to clicks, and then I'll continue on the branding. So my mind's like all over the place. Sorry. So I think the way we've been obsessed with clicks before as SEO, has changed a little bit with the introduction of all of these AI platforms. I think most of us understand that the research phase, right? It could happen last week, kind of thing, and then get your branded term clicked on a couple of days later, sort of thing. So I think the time from when the initial query happened to when the user actually clicked on my branded term, this gap could be a little bit longer than what we're normally used to. So I think, yes, in that perspective, it could change in the terms of the actual time. Obviously, then if you want to continue on the zero click debate, there's so many like strategies that could be involved in this, and I do think it still matters to the core, and I will support that till the day I die. But I think what are more important now is what Amanda was pointing out, actually, your branded terms, to see the increase in your branded terms, because at the end of the day, if your brand presence online has more of a negative sentiment around it, right? Your reviews are pretty bad. People in forums, they're always complaining, which, to be fair, that's normally the case anyway, because that's why people go to forums. But you can easily sway that, with the right intervention, with the right brand approach. I think that's where the actual shift happens at the moment, and I think that's where we should sort of focus on a little bit more, because at the end of the day, every LLM platform might surface all your branded terms and be amazing, be your best friend for 2 weeks, a month, 2 months, and then suddenly can turn on you very easily. And we actually saw this thing recently. If anyone here is using Ahrefs and they have any kind of snippet, like a product snippet with your brand citations and all that recently just went completely down for a couple of brands. It was on red, it was all on red, and no one knew why, because it's so volatile and it's such a new sort of environment to explore, that I think at this point, if we start advising clients or big brands, do this because you're going to get more clicks in your AI search, I think, yeah, it can get quite scammy in that sense, because at the end of the day, you only know what you know up to a point. Yeah. And you shouldn't sort of sell more than you know, because no one does, and it's easy to find out anyway. Just do a Google search. So yeah, clicks definitely still matter and will matter from now on. It's just the way we approach our reporting, the way we look at clicks, and the sort of value, the direct value that we get from it. and if it's worth investing more or not, pretty much. And branded search all the way, because to be fair, I mean, we all knew it's coming. Funnily enough, if you would have asked me 5-7 years ago when I started more serious with SEO, I used to call myself a branding SEO expert. Guess what? Honestly, that was my title. I didn't know what was going to happen, but that's how connected I saw it even back in the day. So it's the future, if we're talking about the future here.
So yes. So I think it's very interesting. We got three people, three different views all together, and yes, and like the conversation is going great, and I'm also seeing that people are also asking a lot of questions around it. So here I think the question was not just about clicks, it was also how the evolution is happening. So uh, my view here is that yes, clicks is becoming one outcome, but it is one outcome among many, because now we just can't just rely only on click. It is not just the only measurement of visibility. What matters now is more that whether your brand is in the answers, the recommendations, the agents. So whether your brand is visible where your audience is, that's the most important thing which people has to now focus on. So here we now let's move to the very practical one, and it's a conversation I'm having. So it's a conversation I'm having constantly right now with founders in. So I specialize in e-commerce and real estate. So these are the two industries where I usually talk a lot. So so one thing which people are now constantly talking is traffic is down and panic is up. Someone has told them that AI is a fault. Some before they came up, they said that okay, because AI overview is coming, the feature snippets are coming. Anything about strategy. So what do you actually check first? So ideally, when there's a situation which comes up, when a client comes to you and they say that the traffic is down and they start panicking and the conversions are not happening, what is your actual check first? Nikki, maybe you can start.
It's a bit to the proxy metric thing, because sometimes when they go traffic is down, I go, okay, so what? So have you had less sales at the moment? Because traffic's not the end of the world right now. If you're seeing the revenue and you're seeing an increase in number of customers and penetration in the market, then you're okay. Keep doing what you've been doing so far. Try and see what else you can do on top, but don't panic, because we've seen the proof. It is not just assumption that traffic is down. I think I saw last year's Brighton SEO, someone had a great statistic with like, it's really proven to go down, and there was some good presentations from there I would be able to maybe share. But in terms of, if I knew their revenue was down too, and I knew that their site wasn't great, then probably the first thing I'd do is just a site audit, because the number of times I do a simple site audit and there's duplicate pages now existing. It's just site structure is not set up properly. It tends to be a simple problem where a competitor is now doing more in the space. It can also be something like that. So yeah, I think a lot of people use AI as a scapegoat, not just in SEO, but in business in general. We're seeing things like layoffs because of AI. Well, actually layoffs because of bad planning and things like this. Not just because of AI. It's possible, it's absolutely possible that it's because they're not doing enough to rank in AI, but it's most likely not going to be the case in my experience, at least.
Wow, that's so true. Yes, Amanda, you want to?
Yeah, I think to kind of build on what Nikki was saying there, I would be asking the question like, what is the quality of that traffic that is down? Because, to Laura's point earlier, a lot of the traffic that's dropped is informational traffic. And yes, informational traffic is a nice to have. Like, it's nice to have people coming to your website and familiarizing themselves with the brand and that you're asking questions with them. But fundamentally, I would argue that 95% of informational traffic doesn't go any further. So it doesn't necessarily go on to make a lead. It doesn't necessarily go on to buy a product. It could be a student researching for some information. It could be people just browsing, etc., etc. So what I would say is that if 30% of your traffic is down and is informational traffic, I would argue if that traffic is even really adding much value in the first place. I also think as SEOs, rightly or wrongly, for the last 5 years, we spent a lot of time putting content on sites. We spent a lot of time writing a lot of blogs. We spent a lot of time writing a lot of guides. I've seen websites recently that I've audited that have guides and blogs on products that they don't even sell, just to try and like get traffic through to the website, which blows my mind a little bit, but it has been happening. And I'd say actually the most of what we've been doing in the last 2 to 3 years is culling content off websites. So getting rid of blogs that we don't need, getting rid of guides, getting rid of thin content. So actually, I think the first thing is someone came to me and said that, you know, to your point, Nikki, when you're sort of saying AI tends to get the blame for a lot of things, I would probably extend that point and say, well, hang on a minute. Like, again, are we blaming AI for this drop, or is it the fact that your content's not relevant anymore? Because at the same time that AI is, yes, taking clicks for sure, we're also seeing Google updating algorithms a lot. There's a lot of helpful content updates. There's a lot of things going on in the background as well. So I think the first conversation there is really, you know, is it AI to blame? Yes, it might be for a certain percentage, but you know, AI is not new, right? It's been here for a little while now. So realistically, most companies should be doing what they can to mitigate the impact of that. You know, we know what it's doing. For the most part, we know where it's going. Obviously, that can be exponential. But I just think, you know, we do use it as the blame. Oh, well, you know, our SEO is not performing, must be AI. It must be this, must be that. But actually, in reality, there's probably a lot more things we need to look at first. I'm not convinced that AI is taking transactional traffic away. I think it's taking a lot of informational traffic away. And yes, that's leading to a lot of zero clicks because people are getting the information that overlay rather than coming through to the website to get it. But fundamentally, if I want to buy a watch, an AI overlay is not going to solve that need for me. I'm not going to be able to buy a watch fundamentally through that overlay. And maybe in the future I can, and they're obviously developing products to do that. But I still need to click on a traditional organic listing or a shopping listing to actually go ahead and purchase that product. So I think if you're looking for revenue and you're looking for leads, people are still going to have to do that for now, at least outside of the overlay.
I have a point to that because it just had me thinking with they're not going to buy directly, they're still going to come for the transaction, because it is possible, you know, to have agents doing this, but it's so piecemeal right now. It's just not practical for the average consumer. And I'm thinking of my partner specifically, who's a developer. And one of the things we're doing for fun is we have a recipe app we like, and we want to have, when we like the recipe, it's going directly to our shopping cart, basically, for the local supermarket. But we don't trust it enough to have it connected to actually be able to make purchases. So definitely we're coming for a sanity check. And I don't anticipate that would change. I would, you know, would have to give it a lot of training on the stuff that we are looking for. So actually that might have a lot of relevance for like the psychology of marketing and packaging and things like that, because that might become a lot less relevant in the future. But yeah, it just got me thinking with this transactional thing. Like, we still come to make the purchase. It's a bit like millennials, you know, they still get the laptop out to make the airline purchase. We don't quite trust buying a big purchase on the phone. We need to check it first.
That's, yeah, you people have made me think. And I'm not sure if you people have read that, but there was a recent study where where it was put forward that AI is actually an escape. We are putting up that AI is pulling up the traffic, but ideally it is Google Ads which is pulling up the traffic. So the traffic which is contributed to paid ads has been increased substantially in last 1 year, which has contributed to the traffic and the revenue, and not just AI. I mean, so putting up my point, Laura, not to you. So what is your take on this?
So just to piggyback on what you just said, Isha, I think Alida, founder of SEO, she published a recent study done on a couple of e-com brands, where
Correct.
they're actually proving exactly what you've just mentioned. But to just a bit of a completion, because obviously, like, those were very, very good answers. And quite complete. So just to piggyback a bit on what my colleagues were saying, first of all, Nikki, what you just said about the shopping list, I completely get that. The sanity check has to be done. However, I do admire the way SEO, Amazon does the SEO in that sense, because obviously nowadays you can purchase anything through Alexa. And I know more and more people who actually do so. So I think that's probably a platform that us as SEOs we should probably have a deeper look and closer look moving forward. Now, you said, sorry, I think the initial question was about traffic being down and having to report on it, or?
Yeah, traffic being down, and
Yeah.
mostly people put panic and put it on AI. So what is it?
Oh, right. Yeah. So definitely there's a lot of scapegoating out there. But as an SEO, what I'd probably do as a sanity check, just to sort of like show the stakeholders or clients or whoever I'm dealing with, team leaders, you name it, that things are sort of under control. I'll do a quick check into Google Analytics and Google Search Console to actually verify this and see is this tracks like is this for real, and if it's so, is there something really obvious that could trigger this? Because obviously AIO is not going to be it's really a 30%, 40%. That's never going to be the case, unless we move forward and we do obviously transaction through the AI platform. So I think it's just do what you do anyway, like regardless of what the culprit you think might be. So just obviously do that sanity check. It might be a case of like the traffic not being site-wide, right? So it could be a specific channel that's driving it. So, look at the segmentation, your source medium, have a look, see what's happening out there, right? And then just have a look. It could be so many culprits. It could be your cookie policy has gone array. It could be your tag manager going command. I don't know. There's so many things that could happen really before you actually blame the AI. So I think just do 3, 4, 5, easy checks that could sort of like show what's happening really, and then share it with the wider team rather than scapegoating AI. And then obviously I think a lot of people are more interested anyway in AI nowadays, so I think that's why they tend to like think it might be the case because they think they know more. And it's quite funny because at the end of the day it brings us SEOs a bit more upfront, and we get to like open more conversations about it, and people are more interested in what we do, which is amazing, so yay. But yeah, I generally just go what I normally do, like 5 steps. This might be it. Let's investigate and sort it out.
Great. Okay, I was just doing a time check, and I think we are having such a great conversation that I literally missed on checking our time. Cool. So let's just get on another very interesting thing. I might have to squeeze some of my questions. I might not be able to ask everything which I have planned to, but yes. So there's one. Now let's move to the most important thing, which is content, and so AI in the content and the workflow spaces. So there's something which I really found quite striking, and I wanted to discuss is so right now, and it has a real implication on every content strategy in the room. So Google's own data shows that AI search conversations are now 2 or 3 times longer than the traditional searches. So I wanted to ask all of you that does that change has also changed in the thinking about the content depth? And honestly, are most brands anywhere close to ready for that? So Amanda, maybe you can start with, because you're working with a lot of brands. So in the content
I mean,
space.
I don't think brands are ready for it, if I'm being honest. I don't think, I think, yeah. So yes, in terms of how we approach content in an AI space, we definitely need to have that conversational aspect. And what I think is most interesting is that, particularly if I look at product pages, so let's say for e-commerce, we have gone from having loads of content on the page, and that was ranking really, really well. We have then gone and ripped a lot of that content off the page because the search intent has changed to transactional, and that has worked really well. And now we're in a space where, ironically, we need to provide the transactional element for traditional Google search, and we need to provide the informational element for the AI and the LLMs. And if we provide the informational element on the transactional page, Google search doesn't like it. And if we don't provide the informational element, then AI and LLMs don't like it. And I think that is the biggest challenge that we're facing now from a content perspective, is how do we do a content strategy that works for both, when fundamentally traditional Google search for something like a transactional or a commercial search, informational search is excluded. And AI and LLMs fundamentally have different intent, because to that point, like, it is more conversational. Like, people do search, they search back and forth. A lot of people that I know talk to the AI, like, they turn the microphone on and they actually talk to it and they ask it questions and they chat to it. And that is wholly different from coming on and having a high intent search on Google search. So one of the biggest things that we're trying to do at the minute is actually look at how we structure the website so that we can fundamentally address both. We still want to have those great category and product pages, which are high transactional intent, because there's a lot of people coming in and transacting on that. Then from an informational perspective, it's how do we supplement that? Do we, link guides, consolidated guides with that information, with the FAQs, with the more conversational style of content? And you're almost having to build, in my view, two different content strategies, one which addresses that product transactional intent. I think it's similar in lead generation as well. And one which addresses that more long tail conversational queries. And it just reminds me back in, I think it must have been 5-6 years ago now, that this stat came out and it said, in 2020, like 50% of people will search through voice search on Microsoft. And at the time we were all like, what are you talking about? We're not going to prepare for any of that. But interestingly, now there's such a high volume of people voice searching. That's a separate consideration. So I think that's the challenge in content now. I think the challenge is, how do you balance the transactional, traditional, high intent nature of Google search with the informational, conversational nature of AI and LLMs?
Can I say to that, I think that's really important. And also Laura mentioned voice search before, and I thought these are both very good points. I remember when Siri came out and all of the blogs, voice search is going to take over, and then it just wasn't as good. And so this all kind of died. And now I'm seeing it, same as you, it's all coming back. But actually, now that the featured snippets have gone, this is where they're going to come into action, because at the end of the day, those are the quick question and answers. So I think somehow behind the scenes, our previous ranking of featured snippets is going to help us in Gemini, specifically for voice search. So I'm very curious to see what's going to come out next, because I kind of feel that they're going to make a resurgence. It's going to be like featured answer, and then maybe we'll have to do something in our HTML where we're saying how to pronounce things on our website. Could totally see that happening, so that the voice searches can come up. In terms of content, though, what I'm seeing is that definitely a lot more long form content, really well researched long form content, again following the typical best practices, EAT, having a credible author, linking to their LinkedIn, proving that they exist as a person. I don't know if that's going to increase the cost of content in terms of what companies need to be aware of, because now we can create some parts of the content process easier. We can outline things, we can have a grammar review, but we also have extra steps, like we run it through a tone of voice checker, custom GPT for many clients. They have this set up, and then we can run it through that. Then I'm running it through an AI checker. So I have an integration with GPT-0 to check whether it sounds AI, because sometimes the tone of voice checker has put it in AI language and I need to rehumanize it again. So that's extra steps as well. Can definitely recommend checking out, like if people are still getting to grips with it, like MCP Market is where I found this, because I didn't have to create it from scratch. There's just existing MCPs out there that we can totally use. So I think that's also important to note, that we don't have to vibe code everything and get a developer involved for everything. There's stuff existing. Look what's out there and try and use existing things into your content flow. But I do think that I'm not quite sure if it's going to increase the amount of time that we need to create content, because you do need to really well research it. And I'm doing that right now for one of my clients, like Quanti, where I work for one of their healthcare brands. And I'm really looking at the scientific articles, the journals. These are all things behind a gate right now. And then I'm looking at some kind of a PDF that I'm downloading. So really the LLMs don't have access to this right now. I'm sure that they will in the future, or they're specialized, research LLMs. But it's very much still a manual process to get that hard fact data.
Interesting. Laura, your take? I think it's more than depth what everyone is talking about. So yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Nikki, what you just said about YMYL content, you yourself researching content beyond the gate and sort of trying to rely that back onto AI. And oh God, that's such a big conversation there. Like it's you know, it's ethics, it's so many things involved, to be fair. So how brands are, honestly, at this point, I'm like, what's even happening? So I think what's important for any brand, regardless of if you're a small size brand, if you've just started in the game and obviously your online presence isn't necessarily going to be there or worthy, if you like, because people tend to like use that sort of term, is just have a look at, even if you don't exist anymore, you're not there anymore, or you're not there yet, right? And you've just launched a brand and you're desperate to kind of like see how you can get there, go in Google and open LLMs. And you're like, what sort of content should I put out there? Oh my God, I'm overwhelmed. I do not know what to do. Just start talking to the LLM and see where the conversation is going. Honestly, I think that's such an important thing to do, regardless of the type of brand you are. Just because initial research happens in that conversational thread anyway, and you can extract so many topics from there and see where it goes naturally. And you know how as SEO we traditional thinking topic clusters, right? And then we create like different pieces of content that will link within a website to sort of like raise the authority, follow EAT guidelines, and yada yada yada, right? I think what could change in that sense, but still sort of follow the traditional SEO structure, is the long format content that Amanda was talking about, where you're covering all queries in the conversational thread, right? Rather than just the root topic, which would be traditionally your keyword, let's say, right? Or H1, H2, H3. So make sure you've got that structure well researched and get your data for where it's relevant. Again, if you're a new brand, you have no data, just go into your LLM and see what you're talking to that platform. If you've got your data already available, compare that with your data. You know, custom regex your Google Search Console, find out all your questions that are out there. People also ask boxes to find out. There's so many tools out there that can help you extract that kind of information, and make sure that you're covering, you know, the root period, but the entire conversational thread in that one piece of content. I think that's sort of how you can avoid pitfalls of what we were talking about in the beginning. Is it going to be easier linking now? Possibly no. You know, you got to work your own strategy at the end of the day. But just,
So sorry Laura, to just cut you off. So I think what I believe is that maybe I have to talk and have a conversation with SEOTalk itself. This whole concept of content and AI should be a new topic where we should have a lot of more questions, because we have a lot to cover, and I think we're already
yeah.
running with time. So I actually wanted to ask a last question before we have the closure one, but I think we don't have time for that. So the last thing, before we just move to the Q&A, if you guys just have, and I just want real answers, not a LinkedIn safe one. Fast forward 2 years, does SEO a job title still exist? And if yes, what does the person in that role will be doing right now? That's the last one. I want every one of you just put your point, and then we move to the Q&A.
I mean, yeah, I think it still exists. I think what AI is struggling to do, or certainly what I see it struggling to do, is properly audit and evaluate challenges that websites are facing at the minute. I think it does a fine job of doing the content templating thing. I think it does a good job of supporting on digital PR. It can't replicate human relationships, so it's limited in what it can do there. But what I'm finding is that when we're pitching to clients and when we're auditing websites and we're really getting under the bones of what is wrong with the website, AI is still very limited in its capability to do that. And I think for that reason alone, SEO very much still exists as a job. There might be elements within SEO that are reduced, i.e., SEO copywriters or some element of data analysts might be more automated. But I think fundamentally being able to look at a website, spend a couple of hours understanding what the challenges are, especially put together, is something that AI is a long way off doing. So I think it will.
Perfect. Nikki, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, so I agree. I think it will continue to exist. I think it may adapt in some form. It may be some type of SEO coordinator role may emerge, where it's somebody who's very much generalist and just integrating different things and kind of watching the process. I think you still need experts. You need an expert copywriter, you need an expert technical SEO who can fact check also what these agents might be doing in the future, to someone who still understands. And I think that's what we're seeing also with web development right now, where the senior developers are super enabled by things like Claude, right? With Claude Code, you can really be running a lot of stuff, but the juniors are almost able to be replaced with AI. But you still need juniors in the pipeline to be able to get to having seniors. So a lot of the companies I see are trying to make sure they still have a, kind of a bootcamp type of program, or what is it, like a graduate scheme for those types of roles. I think we might see that in the future, where it's like more apprenticeships around SEO, because you got to get hands-on and learn it. It's very difficult, I think, to learn SEO online, with free courses. And I think it's a bit the same with AI. Like Anthropic has a lot of free tools and free courses out there that you can do, but you kind of need to be hands-on to properly understand it.
Perfect. Laura, uh, what's your take?
Yes, so 100% is going to be out there. So SEO is not dead, and I don't think it's ever going to die as long as we use the internet. It's as simple as that. And I think the difference between my job now in this moment and the way it's going to evolve in 2 years, I think I'm going to be able to sell stuff way more than I am at the moment, thanks to the all the AI integrations. Other than that, I feel like what Nikki said is quite valid. I think we'd be acting a bit more as in more senior roles. I think we'd be acting more as project managers in that sense, and different integrations with different teams. I've done, funnily enough, my previous role was as a SEO project manager. It was honestly, it was quite interesting to kind of experience that. And see the many hats that I was wearing, dealing with the UX team, dealing with the dev team, dealing with everyone else in the company, and sort of like making sure that search is relevant and healthy in all these departments. And I think that's going to be us. We're going to be, if you want, SEO doctors, SEO hygienists, SEO whatever you want to call it, but we'll definitely be here while the internet is here. So yeah.
Very nice. So I think one thing is for sure. So SEO is there. It's going to survive for a long, long time. Because we are running with time, I don't think so we'll be able to take much of the question. But there were few which were very interesting. So I just want to take two, if you all are okay and comfortable with extending 5 more minutes. Do you think we can take one or two questions from the audience?
Yep.
Perfect. So let me start with the first one. It's from Vedant. He said that as AI generated content becomes widespread, how should SEO professional differentiate their strategy to maintain authority and trust with both search engine and users in the long term?
So I think we've touched on this, where the long form content, to optimize for those long searches, the back and forth that people will be having with LLMs. I think anyone can make a listicle, but in terms of making an in-depth article, that's what really stands you out from AI slop nowadays.
I think it's also the authoring aspect of it. So making very clear who it is that's written the content, why they've got a level of expertise to write the content, and validating that externally. So, such and such, let's say we've got a client that works in the mattress sector. So a sleep health expert has written this content. Here's their qualifications, and also externally, here's references to them, which shows that they're a trusted person. I think that, that trust behind the content becomes a very important element of it as well.
Absolutely. And really fun fact for that, because again, I'm like that Brighton SEO friend here now, promoting them. But it was a great talk last April. Someone's title was Fake Eat Until You Make Eat, like EEAT. And it was all about how she couldn't get authors to write her content, like in the team. They were so she made fake profiles for these blog posts she was writing. She made them LinkedIn pages. She made them having posts on their profile, so that it would think that it was a credible author. So I think that we might see that. I hope not. I hope that there'll be some checks of this. But I do think that we might see more of this, of like AI influencers, they're writing the blogs, but maybe the normal population doesn't notice that these are like AI things. Super interesting. I have to share you. I thought it was very unethical, but at the same time, I could imagine how people would start doing that in the future. Fake it until you make it.
A very big problem in the UK with that already, with journalists who are now basically ringing sources to check that they're legitimate. And I know Reach PLC, one of the biggest publishers here, has started blacklisting agencies that are doing that. So we have a very, very big problem with that, and it's a really, really serious issue, I think, for the industry.
That's so true, because right now in the digital content space, that's the biggest issue. Trust.
Yeah.
Laura,
so
please.
I was just going to add to it quickly. So is it Malar Barai? Yeah. So I think, given that you asked this question, you're probably quite familiar with the Google developers EEAT documentation. Get on it, give it a reread, and honestly just follow it. It's as simple as that. And then never create fake profiles. Please don't do that. Like, it's not only that it's not ethical. Let's say it works for a while, like the Brighton SEO lady, right? Funnily enough, that was such a big like blowout last year. It was mad, the proportions of what that took. Anyway, so even if you are tempted of doing something like this and you end up doing it, at some point in the game, you're going to get penalized for it. You might get a manual penalty. You might get, honestly, it's not worth the risk. Just don't do it. The end.
Which we'll have it's a very controversial one, Laura. Maybe there's a huge debate which people can have on it, specifically in the AI world, when we talk about creating those profiles which are almost like real. You will not be able to even differentiate which is the real one, which is the fake one. But let's see how the world goes. So having said that, the last one from Malhar, what KPIs would you suggest now, given how search is changing? What would be relevant ones for CMO versus CFO? Because, and I think that the reason I'm putting this question is because I really like this, that the KPIs for CMO will be different from CFO. So right now, we touched based on this, but is there any last takeaways apart from the ones which we haven't? Any one of you want to take it?
For a CMO, I would say, like, if you're in a medium to big company, a CMO should be focused on penetration in the market to drive growth. One of the classic marketing books is How Brands Grow by Brian Sharp, and I would recommend you to read that. It's very much a challenging of the current assumptions of marketing in terms of what's driving your growth. Is it the frequency people are buying? Is it loyalty, or is it getting new light category buyers into your pipeline? So for a CMO, I would say focus on penetration. For the CEO, CFO, they're going to care very much about revenue and things like that, but they should also care about the number of customers and the penetration.
That's a nice answer. Anyone else want to take? Or
I think one of the main things that we're focusing on at the minute is the quality of the traffic that's coming through to the website, right? So we've kind of abandoned overall organic traffic as a metric. I don't think it's really working, and we're focusing a little bit more granularly on things like high intent pages. So how much traffic are you getting to specific pages on the website? This would be for the CMO, I guess. Because that, and looking at things like Search Console to see which keywords are driving that traffic. And that's the best way we really have of guesstimating the right kind of people and the right kind of quality that's coming through to the website. So I would definitely do that. I mean, fundamentally, for a CFO and CEO, it's still going to be sales and leads, right? Because that's the bread and butter. That's what pays people's wages. That's what pays the bills. That metric, I don't think, is ever going to change. It might not look as good as it did 2 years ago, but fundamentally, that's still going to be the KPI we're going to have to report on. We're just going to have to do a better job of explaining why it is how it is.
Okay, so we are coming up on the hour, and before I let you all go, I want one thing from each one of you. What do you, the single one most important thing someone who's watching right now should take away from you today? So, if there's one thing which you want to tell to the audience, Nikki, we'll start with you.
Sure. So for me, it would be experiment. Absolutely experiment with all these free tools out there, so that you know what's possible. Because otherwise, you really do risk getting left behind with a lot of these workflows and things like that. Don't let yourself get too overwhelmed, though. Really, just if you spend a little bit of your week doing a little bit of experimentation here and there. Maybe today you've heard a lot about, and MCPs or something, and you go, okay, I want to have a look at what there is. Great, that's your research for the week done. You've had a little bit of an investigation, or you want to try out Claude Code with one of these Anthropic courses or something like that. So experiment, and yeah, that's the way you're going to learn. Get hands on.
That's so true. Amanda, you want to
I
go
think
last?
for me, it would just be to embrace AI. I think that we still have, I think there's a number of people in the industry who are still quite reluctant to have anything to do with it. I think predominantly it sits in kind of the copy sectors, and people are very fearful that AI is going to steal their jobs, and therefore they want to stay as far away from it as possible. But the reality is that the world is moving towards AI, and the longer it takes to embrace it and understand how it can help you, how it can improve efficiency and make you better at your job, I think the harder it's going to be to kind of get to that place. So, to the points that have been made in the conversation today, we don't want it to take away our level of intelligence. We've got to keep learning. We've got to keep the motivation to keep making ourselves better as humans. We can't become lazy and reliant on AI. But I think we need to find that happy medium between how do we use it to help make us more efficient, to help us grow and help us develop in our roles, whilst also keeping that human element, which is essentially what I think is still very important of SEO.
So true. Last thoughts, last takeaways.
Okay, so first of all, I think everyone working in marketing, so not just SEO, for the next couple of months to a year, should familiarize themselves with the new laws of neuromarketing. Everything to do user behavior, behavioral science. I know it sounds a bit geeky, but it makes sense once you start reading up on it and see what brands put out there and their kind of research. First of all. Second of all, manage expectations. So regardless of who you're speaking to, if it's your stakeholders, your clients, peers, anyone you're speaking to, manage expectations when it comes to this future of AI and everything that's happening at the moment. Make sure you set up boundaries, and so you don't end up getting overwhelmed, because everyone's going to expect you, being the SEO of your company or being part of an SEO team, just sort of know it all, when really all these shifts are happening overnight. So allow yourself time to breathe, keep engaged. As Nikki and Amanda said, research, go out there and test your own tools and see what works for you. And yeah, make sure you don't get overwhelmed, because this is an amazing trade to be in, and it'll be so shame to lose passionate individuals just because the times are what they are at the moment. So hang on.
That's so nice. So before we wrap, I just want to tell everyone that all of our panelists are available on LinkedIn. If any of you want to specifically share that, where can people reach out to you? This is your time. We will add the links in the description once we will have the YouTube live. But one thing which I'm aware of, that you all are available on LinkedIn. Apart from LinkedIn, is there any other platform you people are comfortable that people can reach out to you?
It's the best
Just
place.
LinkedIn.
Amanda, for you?
Just LinkedIn.
Just LinkedIn. Perfect. So thank you so much, Nikki, Laura, and Amanda. This was exactly the kind of conversation SEO Talk is built for: honest, data grounded, and genuinely useful. I have taken a lot of takeaways, and I might be reaching out to you individually for a lot of learning as well. I'm looking forward to a lot of sharings which Nikki, you mentioned that you have a lot of different documents and research. I'll be looking forward that if you can share that. Everything which you people have shared is was very, very, very useful. I really hope that it is useful for everyone. Thank you, everyone who's watching live, and everyone who will catch the replay. And the one last thing is, this is just the season 1 of 5. Season 2 is coming next Friday. There will be a topic and information shared later with you. All I want you to say is that subscribe to the YouTube channel of SEO Talk. Do not miss us on SEO Talk Twitter Spaces. We are all every Monday. We are there live. Take care, everyone, and bye. Thank you so much.